The next panel will be about the next generation payment system, a sub-segment of financial technology. So I'd like to welcome on the stage Mr. Fevzi Güngör. He is the CEO of Ödeal. In English it means pay and take. So I think that gives you an idea, a payment system company. And also Wim Raymakers, Global Head of Banking Market, Swift. Welcome on the stage. So Wim leads Swift's banking initiatives worldwide and is responsible for developing and driving value propositions across the banking community. He's been there for more than 2 decades. Such a long career. Thank you. And Selim Gusar will be on the stage. Please welcome. He's the general manager of Moka Ödeme Kuruluşu and also innovative mobile payment and CRM solution partner for all sizes of companies. And for the last resort, we have Nogay Kampolat. You're welcome on the stage, sir, please. He's the regional director in Southeast Europe of Western Union. So stage is yours. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming here. So I want to start with Wim. To repeat, Wim is from Swift. No, what? What was the company again? Swift. Swift, yeah. He's from Swift. He's head of banking industry. We know there are competing solutions for cross-border payments. And considering these, is it only because we can do it, or is it because the barriers are lower and the customer is demanding these?
Well, I think there are many solutions indeed out there. But to make a segue back to what Mike said this morning, I think it's all about what the customer is looking for. So if you take a corporate treasurer, he's indeed looking to do his business cross-border, and there's many ways to get that payment done. But I think fundamentally he's looking for more assurance, more certainty, more speed in making those payments. Okay. So I think we talked a bit about yesterday, and actually also with a journalist in the car this morning. This whole space of cross-border payments is actually a very dynamic space. It used to be boring, kind of, cross-border payments, banking, but now we see lots of new entrants, lots of new solutions out there to help improve the customer experience.
Okay. So, I mean, do you consider this is going to change radically after these new solutions, or is it just a more slow change?
I think it could be a bit of both. There's definitely new technology out there. Blockchain was mentioned this morning. But I think, personally, that there is sometimes a bit of over-focus, or maybe enthusiasm, but over-focus on fintech. Mm-hmm. Technology in financial markets is important, but I think we should not forget either the business side of financial services. And one of the initiatives that I work for at Swift is to work with banks actually on the existing technology. So banks do have payment channels between them, whether it's Swift or another company. Mm-hmm. And those technologies can be used actually to make payments globally, provided that you have a good understanding between banks. Mm-hmm. That does not always require to rip out a technology and put something completely different in there. So that's why I think sometimes there's a focus on fintech, which is good, but we should also look at the business rules and the practices between banks.
Okay, I want to switch to Selim. So, I mean, when you consider fintech companies, how do you consider financial inclusion in the context? You know, I mean, what's your experience with the local government, the banks? I mean, what roles should be emphasized when you consider these?
Well, Fevzi, actually, the answer to this question should take around a few hours, and we need to cancel the rest of today and talk about this. But I'll try to sum it up in a few minutes.
You have, I mean, as long as 4 minutes, just firstly, as much as you like.
Firstly, we need to see the major abilities of fintechs before we describe the role in financial inclusion. The fintech's major abilities, to me, firstly, is the speed of fintech. And secondly, accountability is very important, and the efficiency, of course. Fintechs are making banking and financial products and services reachable or easy to reach to consumers, specifically living in rural locations, or some unbanked people living even in the major cities. This is one of the huge roles of fintechs. And surely this is not the only role, and they are making more affordable those products and services for those consumers by lowering the cost of doing business. With what kind of services we are talking about? They are like, microfinancing. It is remittances, money transferring, utility bill payments, cashless payments, etc. And we can enlarge the samples. And some elementary insurance policies as well. This is on consumer side, but this is not the only part of it. We need to see the other role, other side of the fintechs, such as think like local store, general store, is acting as a payment point, as a new revenue stream for them. And it's a very great convenience for the consumers as well, because you don't need to go out or away, and you don't need to wait for the queues in the bank to pay your utility bill, but you can go around 20 meters away to a general store, which it could be a GSM accessory store, and you can make your payments there easily, or money transfer.
I mean, what would you say if I said, the retail perspective is now owning the financial landscape? Because, previous to that, the financial institutions had the whole value chain. Mm-hmm. But as of now, what we're dealing with is the transformation in a more retail perspective. Someone produces the service, someone else retails it, someone else do the customer care. What would you say about that?
In the retail perspective, firstly, the solution should touch a need, a serious, specific mm-hmm. need. Otherwise, it is really difficult for convincing consumers to use those tools. And finally, there are some business models based on promotions. Mm-hmm. And I believe those won't survive until the promotion ends. So you really need to feel them secure, and you really need to touch a specific need for them to use and enlarge the usage for the huge customer base.
Mm-hmm. I was Nogay. Nogay, there are lots of, as I said, competitors in the market in terms of international remittances or yes. local remittances. How do you see the mobile payments app, peer-to-peer payments, blockchain technology? What do you see the biggest threats and or the opportunity for Western Union in the shortcoming future?
I think we see them as potential partners, not threats at all. They're actually enablers. The challenge is it's not sure which one's going to remain, right?
Yeah.
Because there are many of them. So it's really hard to kind of understand who to partner with or who to counter with. But at the end of the day, people like cash, right? In the beginning, there was nothing else. Then they wanted to transfer that, so we were in there. Now cash is becoming sort of digitalizing, right? And there are all these companies out there trying to kind of get into this. At the end of the day, whoever does it the best way for the customer, they're going to sustain. Their challenge is going to be to make money as well, because in most of the cases we see these are experimental, or let's say due to the cash richness of today's economy, they're tryouts. So we're basically trying to partner and try to see which one's going to remain and serve the customer needs. At the end of the day, you may be solving a problem, but first there needs to be a problem to be solved. Of course. And most of these cases, it's not yet, let's say, tested by the customer. So for us, we're always starting with that. We were taking that angle, and we're sort of translating their needs between the financial industry and the regulators. Because some of these products require quite complex background, right? But you can't bother the customer with that. So whoever does that seamlessly, gonna sustain.
Okay. Do you have a specific model for partnering with those fintech startups, companies, or?
Yeah, we used to be quite bad at that because we had old technology and really rigid. Now we're developing that so that it becomes much easier to integrate. So we started as partnering with banks, right? And on the background we use SWIFT because that's the international settlement
Standard.
Right, standard. But now we're partnering with mobile apps, wallets. At some point, if the regulation allows, this is going to be even more seamlessly, right? More platforms going to just start to connecting each other.
Yeah. Wim, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I would like to build on that and maybe come back to your first question, because I think what we see, your first question about competition and cross-border, actually, I don't see a lot of competition in the core cross-border business of payments between banks. Yeah. What I think we've seen is a lot of innovation in the front end. Yeah. The mobile phone, online banking, accessing the bank itself, and we see lots of innovation there. I don't think we've seen yet lots of innovation in the core cross-border transactions between banks.
Because as Nogay said, I mean, probably there is not that big of a problem there, right? I mean, it's going as good as it's supposed to be.
Or maybe the needs are not yet, let's say, vitalized, or people don't know that they have that need.
Yeah.
So unless you come up with a product which will kind of nurture that need and then you address it, you don't much have a current product, but that's the challenge.
Mm-hmm. SWIFT also has an innovation lab, right? Innovation hub or something like that. Yeah. So how do you see the strategical expansion in that context? I mean, what will be the most impressive new products, features, success story coming out of it, using the SWIFT's platform technology?
Well, one of the initiatives we're working on is a global payment innovation initiative that has that tries to address that cross-border experience. Actually using the existing technology, but with business practices between banks. So just to give an example, a payment between banks is actually happening in seconds. But that does not mean that the bank does the credit in seconds. It's hard to follow the transparency of the fees when it goes from one bank to the other. So what this initiative aims to achieve is that banks provide same-day use of funds. So your money is there in the account same day, which addresses a lot of corporate requirements in terms of making speed of payments, transparency of the payments in terms of fees and execution time. And as part of that innovation lab, we're also building a payment tracker. So like a FedEx, so after 40 years, you can finally see where is your payment. Yeah, so those are some of the new innovations coming out of that lab.
That happens on closing days, to remark Alper. Yeah, right? And they tell you they sent the money, but it hasn't come. So you just want a tracker.
Exactly, you want to know where your payment is. You want to know that it's been credited. Because otherwise there's frustration between the buyer and the seller. Yeah. You say, where's my container? Well, you call your seller, and he says, well, you didn't pay me. And then you say, but I asked my bank 2 days ago to pay you. And he says, well, I don't have the money. So, where is the money?
We excelled on that because we saw that, customers are like with the bank transfers, that's exactly, you don't know where your money is. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why Western Union sort of grew out of it, because in our case, it's instant. Because the money doesn't change hands, actually. It's just everybody connects to the same place and understand it's there, okay. And then reconciliation happens on the background with SWIFT, of course.
I have a success story for that with Western Union, and I'll tell you when we're off the steps.
Well, I think that's, if I may build on his points. So in a sense, Western Union is a closed system, in the sense that you set the rules and you monitor. Yeah. But try to do that in a community of 10,000 banks.
Of course.
That's a challenge. So actually, with this initiative, we're creating a closed loop experience in an open membership model. And I think the world is going towards a closed loop experience. Now, whether the system behind it is closed loop or open membership, I think our customers, retail and wholesale corporates, are asking for that seamless experience. And the challenge is to give them an experience which is as good as a closed loop system, where you have transparency, speed, tracking, all those beautiful things, which actually are now on the table as a requirement.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, I mean, the payment schemes are doing actually, right? In credit cards business, like Visa, MasterCard, and Troy as well. So, so Selim, you started as a mobile payments app. Now you're moving also into the invoice payments. So you have offices all over Turkey, right?
Correct.
Do you consider moving to cross-border payments? I mean, do you see an opportunity there within Turkey?
Well, yes and no. No, because we're a startup company, so we think we need to focus on some specific certain businesses first. After achieving some specific levels, and yes, then we can move on to the cross-border transfers.
So, I mean, are you looking for an opportunity to partner with a cross-border payments company, or?
Not today, but a few years later, yes, we surely be looking for a huge partner, a strong one.
So how are you dealing with banks? Are you partnering with them at the moment, or?
It's an interesting issue because banks think fintechs are their little naughty brothers. They sometimes hate us, but they never let us go. Yes, we need to work so close with the banks because we are actually redefining banks' products, and we are developing new channels for them, and we are distributing on behalf of the banks actually.
Yeah.
On acquiring side, on cashless payments, you know, the only thing is we are able to move faster than banks, and we are able to reach customers banks cannot touch. This is the major ability of the fintech. So we are not enemies, we are friends of banks.
Okay. Nogay, Western Union does, I mean, for years, does one thing and does that one thing on a massive scale and does it great. So considering the mobile coming and the blockchain and stuff like that, will you try, I mean, is the company's focus to emphasize on scale or the product itself, or is it just gonna change the number of buckets? Is it gonna go into new product services or such?
Well, we've been doing this since 165 years.
Yeah.
Actually. And through that time, company evolved. Like, we're not doing telegraph anymore. We're doing money transfer. So on that, I think we will still do that. We will carry whatever the form of trade at that moment. Today is cash and funds. And tomorrow, if let's say Bitcoin is going to be recognizable currency among all these central banks of the world, then we'll carry Bitcoin as well. So I think
do you have any initiative on that specific?
We don't really look at that. We look at the market, what customers demand, right? It's like currency. Customers demand euro, we have euros. They dollars, rupees. So if that comes in play, and if that's recognizable currency, tradable, I guess we'll carry that. So in an essence, I don't think the fundamental of it won't change. We will still facilitate transfers. It's just that how customers are going to interact with it is going to change. And that's what we're looking now. Where this is going to be triggered. In the old days, it was you take your cash, you go to a location, you send it, the other guy goes to the location, takes it. That was the only use case. Today, you could be doing that from a mobile phone, sitting at your home. You could be doing it at a kiosk in Eastern Europe someplace. So what's next? We're trying to assess that, and we're trying to be on that forefront.
So I have one more short question for you. Prior to the new license law, 6493, you were obliged to do the transactions through Autobank, right? I mean,
yes.
You'd have to do these within banks.
Yeah.
What changed afterwards? I mean,
yeah.
when you consider your perspective within Turkey, I mean, your investments.
Practically, you no longer have to work with the banks. But, at the background, the regulation is defined such a way that, it sort of defines a bank still. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges here when we talk about the payments industry in Turkey. the regulation is built towards banking. So the regulation is looking all of us sort of like, well, you're kind of like banks. Well, we're not. But anyway, I know how to regulate banks, so in that angle. But it's evolving, right? So on that, it of course enables you to work partners outside the bank. But then again, the financial systems beyond the bank, especially countries like Turkey, I think there's a huge room to grow. Think of it, Turkey has close to 11,000 bank locations. On top of that, around 4,000 post office locations. That's it. For an 80 million country, that's it. That's the area. If you compare that to countries like Spain or Ukraine, you need to probably have 3-4 times more locations like that, right? Not big ones, small ones. And then branchless banking, how to connect all of that. So I think there's a huge opportunity here for the smaller startups in the fintech who would sort of get the bridge between these locations and non-locations transactions throughout the country. I think that's an opportunity.
And of course, not to forget, there are around 20 million unbanked people in Turkey.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we are aiming at Ödal as well.
Unbanked, and also we usually define people like unbanked and it is underbanked. There are people, so if you look at it, they seem to have a bank account, but all they do is they come in at the end, at the beginning of the month, from the ATM, take out all the cash, and use their transactions in cash. So there's even a larger population who is underbanked, and again, that's I think a bigger opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, having such a close fintech community here, I mean, I think it would be selfish to, spare the stage for just 4 of us. So I really would like to spare some time for the questions. If we have questions through the audience, it would be a great time. Oh, okay, there you go.
Jochen Biedermann from Frankfurt. So a little bit more than 2 weeks ago, we had the CEO, Mr. Leiprand of SWIFT, attending a conference in Frankfurt, and he said the one thing which keeps him awake at night is cybersecurity. So not focusing so much what happened at SWIFT, but in general, how do you see it? And is there a risk that due to a major event, trust in new payment technology might be lost?
Maybe we should start with him, since SWIFT is mentioned.
Well, it's definitely on the top of mind of my CEO, that's for sure. And I think I'm the second priority amongst 3, which is this new innovation initiative. And I think why is because we're looking to strengthen the relationships between banks. Payments tracking, providing a clear path and a record of when the payment has been done and who confirms that payment can only help for that. So that's maybe one perspective. And I think in terms of new innovation, I think this payment tracking is a really, it's a new development that we may have seen in FedEx and in online shopping, but I don't think we've seen it in cross-border banking yet. Mm-hmm. So that's one aspect. The second one is part of our innovation initiative. We consulted with over 40 banks in 4 geographies around the world, and we asked, what would you like us to do next? So 2 things came out. Actually, digitization, so to be able to send, for instance, invoices with payments. So again, to Mike's comment, it's about an SME presenting an invoice and then actually getting that invoice paid with the clear remittance data. Mm-hmm. For the corporate, it's all about reconciling and clearing his invoices. It's not so much about the payment. So I think that digitization, that came back. And the other one was help us to stop fraud. That was not on behalf of banks, but actually on behalf of their customers. Because corporate customers also suffer fraud. Somebody impersonating, using social engineering, pretending I'm the new CFO, pay to me, and actually they pay. It does happen.
It happens.
So it's definitely on the top of the mind, and I think there's additional opportunities. I think also for fintech companies, actually. If you want to think about fraud pattern recognition, software that can help identify patterns of misbehavior, I think those are actually all opportunities for fintechs to work with banks in that space.
You guys have anything to add?
Well, we need to think security issues on top of almost everything. I agree with Wim, but of course the idea comes first, and then how we can convince consumers that this idea and the service we are bringing is secure for them. And surely we shouldn't forget that the consumer's education is another important part of it, because most of the fraudulent activities are happening because of the lack of information, lack of security concerns of consumers or users. So we also need to concentrate on this subject with banks, of course, because as fintechs, it is not that easy to reach the customers and tell them what fraud is and what they need to take care about. So we need to cooperate with banks in terms of fraud.
I mean, having a closed loop system, it would be easier to control fraud, but...
Yeah, in a way it is, but then to get access to that system, it's still open, right?
Yeah.
So for us, I think the security perspective is like sort of like the industry standard. You have to have it. There's no, let's say, ifs about it, because if you don't have it, you don't have anything else. The challenge for us is how do you deal with fraud prevention and anti-money laundering and all the anti-terrorist financing bits where you monitor the good guys, you separate from the bad guys, right? Because
that's the problem, billion-dollar question.
That's the biggest challenge, because if it's too tight, you're stopping your genuine customers.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you're not doing it, you're breaking the law, or you're issues with the regulator. So it goes both ways: communication with the regulator, getting the best systems in place, integrating them, and like you said, customer education, because people are also new to this financial services, right? They some of them, they don't even understand half of it, but they're using it. So it becomes a challenge how to manage this.
Yeah.
Without scaring them.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a
Yes, there's a balance between making it easy and making it secure. Yeah, because if you make it secure, it may not be that easy, but you're happy with your security.
That's another challenge.
the one who
Or you make it very easy, and then the security or the fraud kind of increases. So
but the product or the service who gets it right is actually
Picking
they
up.
fly, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions to the audience? So I want to say a few words about the security thing as well. What we're doing is probably credit cards, and the fraud is credit card schemes are the center for the fraudulent issues. So what we see is we try to build up an environment where fraud is happening, but we want to limit it to an unscalable portion of it. What I mean by it is we want to prevent the systematic fraud where, individual fraud happens and you cannot prevent it. But while doing this, we try to ease the customer adoption and the learning curve to keep the learning curve less steep. So what we've seen in the short history of our company is that it majorly depends on your partners, our merchants who are dealing with the customers themselves. Of course, there are, evil behaving partners as well, but they just single out very easily. The thing is, the direction you look. So, as fintech companies, we should more focus on the user experience, because since the scales are smaller, the fraud is less harmful. But of course, the industry standard will drive us the right way. So, do we have any other questions from the audience? So, thank you all for coming here.
Thank you.